Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, HOA neighbor destroyed my 90-year-old orchard and built an illegal garage on my property. And by the way, Ripe Stars, this story was submitted by a subscriber, so that means it was never read before on YouTube. Please enjoy. The story starts like this. My grandparents had bought a very large property without much idea of what to do with it. They did not want to farm on it, but felt like it would be a waste to just let it sit there. So that was when roughly 100 years ago they dedicated a good chunk of the land into making an orchard. The first few trees grew and many more after were getting planted every year. At this point they covered almost all the spare land that was not being used. Even better, there was a little building near the back edge of the property that they would make jams out of the fruit and sometimes even store things. There was not a fence in the back, and in fact they became really good friends with the neighbor who lived on that property. The building had actually been built in a way that it was technically on both sides of the property, and the neighbor's late father had used it for carpentry. He did not mind it becoming my grandparents and used for preserving fruit. They had always thanked him with free jam, and that was a tradition that continued once both my parents and neighbor's children took over the property. Jump to modern day, and I am keeping up the tradition of the family by working on the orchard, and I love it. My parents are getting a little older, and we are at the point that we sometimes get people to come help during harvest season so we can get to do everything. The son of old neighbor died and his property had went up for sale. My parents thought about buying it and expanding, but the more we thought about it, the less it made sense. My brother lived in the city and we could barely handle the number of trees we have now. Enter the main antagonist of this story, evil neighbor Karen. Right away we knew that we were going to have problems with her. Everything was a complaint, from how early some neighbors got up and tended up their chickens, to how she complained she could not build a pool on the property. There were some local rules about it and the fact that the ground could not handle it or something. I never really looked into why pools are not allowed to be built here. Finally, her cycle of complaining came to us and our orchard. She complained so many times about our trees and how disruptive to her property they were. You're reading that right, the trees that do nothing but sit there and grow wonderful fruit are somehow disruptive to her. The main complaint is that the leaves will eventually fall off and get into her property. So she is actually complaining about something that has not even happened yet. Side notes that when it does happen, I make sure to rake all the leaves no matter which side of the property they seem to blow on. Finally, she is mad about the building that is on the border of the two properties and wants it removed. The thing is that since it is over a certain age, you cannot actually remove a building like that without a permit from the town. We were not about to let her bully her way into destroying something ancient. I understand that it was slightly on her property, but the way she was carrying on about everything got her on my bad side. That was when things started to mysteriously happen and could not just be coincidence. The trees that were closest to that property edge seemed to suddenly get sick and started to die. I found some weird holes near the bottom of the tree that looked like it was made with a drill. I could only guess that she was drilling something into the tree that would cause it to die. I had no proof of that though and could not get her. Also, some jam went missing and I had to put a lock on the building's door to stop what I really think was her from stealing. Finally, one day we left our property for a week to not only go on vacation, but to also attend a market in another city to sell our jam and some produce. When we came back, the building and the orchard were gone and everything we had there was destroyed. So yes guys, you heard that right, she really destroyed our beautiful, almost 100-year-old orchard. In its place was concrete and the frame for a structure. After a few more days, we found that she had built herself a garage right where that beautiful building used to be. My family was angry, not because of the material things lost, but because the whole orchard is like a family memory and she just tore it down. I wanted to get some major revenge and I knew that I was going to get it. She got away with destroying trees and stealing jam, but there was no way she was going to find a way to not get in trouble for this. I started doing my research, which is when I found out about the law regarding destroying old buildings, and went into town to see if she had gotten permission. It turns out that the town had no idea she had done this, and the building was in the records as needing a very specific permit. That thing was not easy to get and required an inspection that said it was a hazard and had to come down. I let them know that it was torn down and a new garage was built right on the remains. Let's just say that Karen was in for a huge surprise when the town started going after her with all kinds of fines. She never even got a permission to build the garage either, so she was hit with one for that as well. At this point she had over $200,000 worth of fines for destroying the building and having a garage put up without getting any type of permit. My town takes both of those things very seriously, and things did not stop there for her. I had put up cameras and caught her messing with my trees, which added another fine for destruction of private property. If that was not enough, there is one last piece of revenge that is the cherry on top. The land shows that her garage is built on what she thought was the property line. The thing is, it is about 75% on our land, and since it is old, it follows much different rules. We have the majority and are the only ones that need to file for a permit to have it destroyed. So, not only did she have to pay all of those fines, but at the end of the day, she lost whatever money it cost her to build that garage. We did not feel bad in the slightest, and she decided that she was going to walk in and start to mess with a family that has owned this land for almost 100 years. That will teach Karen not everything bends to her will, and she is not above the law. And yeah, ripe stars, if you still enjoy the stories about entitled people and crazy neighbors, then I would really appreciate it if you could also like the video, because that would help my channel tremendously. In addition, if you haven't subscribed yet, I would really appreciate that as well, because we are closing in on 70,000 subscribers, which is absolutely insane. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is titled The Story of the Most Entitled Mother Ever, Part 1. And by the way, yes, we will read Part 2 as well. So, for a bit of backstory, my parents sometimes ask me or my siblings to watch the house while they are gone, because they don't want to leave the dogs alone for an extended period of time. Usually my youngest sibling does it because she still lives at home, but she had to go to her friend's party/sleepover. As a result, my parents asked if I had time, and given I did not have to work today and I only have one crappy class that I can skip without any trouble, I obliged. My parents live in a large village, essentially one that gives you the illusion of rural, but in reality it is a 5 to 10 minute drive from several bigger towns in a city, one of those villages you wanna leave as a 20-year-old, but one that you want to return to the moment you have your own children, because there's barely any crime, everyone knows everyone, it is extremely calm, etc. However, it has one issue. One of the larger towns close to the village is sort of notorious for scummy people. It is one of those towns that constantly manages to F up its budget, and a good third of its population are lazy people and so on. It's like a giant pimple on an otherwise blemishless area. As a result, when people from said town manage to get some money, they have a tendency to move to the village my parents live in. Local government makes this nice and difficult for them on the down low, but they cannot stop it all. And as expected, they bring their attitude with them. Our entitled mother and her devil spawn in this great saga are from said town. The cast is me, EK entitled kid, EM entitled mother, ED entitled dad, and N for neighbor. So I am sitting in the garden, minding my own business, scrolling some news sites, messaging some friends, enjoying the nice weather, which is interrupted by the sound of a football being shot against my parents' house and the neighbor's house. We have this carport area between the two houses, which is roomy and makes sure you don't lose your ball all the time. So my parents generally allow kids to use it when they are at work. This continues for a bit, and before long the ball shoots right over the fence in the back of our yard, which I frankly did not notice as I was on my phone. However, I am quickly interrupted by the dog growling. The dog is an extremely big mixed German and Belgian shepherd, followed by the loud crack of wood and a thump from something large falling down. Well, I see the kid from 2 houses further falling down and my dog about to charge. So I put my phone on the table, grab the dog by its collar and put it inside. In the meantime, the kid is already in the yard grabbing his ball and sprinting back to the broken fence. The fence is about 180 meters tall, made of wooden planks, and hence it is not exactly made to withstand 13-year-old overweight kids climbing on it. The kid then attempts to climb back over, cracking another plank at the bottom in his escape attempt before I walk over and grab him by the back of his shirt collar. Me? And where do you think you are going? EK, let me go, let me go! Me? I don't think so. You just broke the fence. You can either calm down and we go to your house to explain what happened, or I call the police. At this point, the kid starts flailing, trying to get himself loose, that is until he turns around and looks at me. Now, I am 6'5" to 6'6", in very good physical shape, and I have a very nice permanent resting face, so he quickly stopped. At this point, I grabbed the key from my pocket and opened the door, the yard door, to walk over to his house with the kid still firmly by his shirt collar. As we reach the door, I knock on it and I am greeted by the sound of a yelling woman behind the closed door talking about how the kid has a key and now she has to get up, etc. But eventually the door opened and at this point from the corner of my eye I could already see my neighbor standing behind his living room window, arms crossed, shaking his head. Me, hello miss you... EM, let go of my boy right now, what is wrong with you? I let go primarily because I was shocked about her reaction. The kid starts sobbing like a 5-year-old and runs inside. EM, how dare you touch my son? Me, well, if you would stop yelling and let me explain. I'm not yelling. Note of the OP, she was yelling. Me, right, regardless, your son just broke my parents' fence trying... And that gives you the right to manhandle my son? I did not manhandle your son. I grabbed the collar of his shirt because he was trying to run away after he broke the fence. And now you can either calm down and we can come to an agreement how to handle this, or I can call the police and have them deal with it. At this point she seemed to calm down a bit more, especially after I mentioned the word police. EM, right, so it is probably not that bad. She calls over her son, apparently having fixed his sadness as he appears again, stuffing his face with candy. EM, say sorry to the neighbor. EK, sorry. And he bolts off again, not even giving me a chance to reply. EM, well, with that out of the way, she attempts to close her door, but I quickly shake off my shock and put my foot in the door, pushing the door open again, and at this point raising my voice substantially. Me? Excuse me? Your son broke the fence. It is all fine and dandy he gave a half-assed apology on your orders, but that still leaves the fact that he just broke a 200 euro wooden fence that will need to be replaced. EM, my son said sorry and that's the end of it. At this point, the neighbor has opened his door, leaning against his doorpost to listen in, as his eyes are summoning a hurricane by the sheer amount of rolling they are doing. Just a little note, he dislikes them a lot. He has had a lot of problems with them ever since they moved in. Once again, our EM attempts to close the door on me, but I still have my foot in the doorway, so all she is doing is giving my toes a thrashing. Me, look, this is the last time. Her hulking 5'5" muscle mass of a husband appears now, visibly upset, annoyed, and every muscle within his noodle arms straining, his balding head glistening in the sun, peeking through the door opening, though slightly obscured by the 3 strands of hair combed over his head from the side, as his enormous shape looks up at his taller wife. ED, what is the problem here? EM, he is yelling at me and manhandled our son. ED, I will get you, a-hole. The door swings open and as you may imagine, I am just shaking on my legs. This pure, mighty example of masculinity threatening me to do me harm. Gosh, I've never been so terrified in my life. Me, look dude, I did not do anything to your son and the only one who has been yelling this entire time is your wife. Now listen to me, your son broke my parents' fence, so you can either get it repaired or give me the money to buy a new one and pay me for the time it takes to replace it. Usually I wouldn't have charged labor costs, but given that they were dicks, so can I. Or we can get the police involved here. ED, you have no proof of what happened, so go fix it yourself, douchebag, and if I ever see... Neighbor, I saw everything. Your son broke the fence and tried to run away. Also, your wife just assaulted the neighbor with the door. You can clearly spot a devious smirk on the neighbor's face. He likely did not see anything, but like I said, he absolutely hates them, and this was him taking revenge, I think. At the same time, I can see EM and ED visibly losing all the bravado they had left. Me, so as I was saying, the fence cost 200 euros when my parents purchased it, add another 50 for the time it takes me to replace it, and we all walk away from this. Added to that, if you threaten me again, I will just have to defend myself, won't I? At this point, I was honestly sort of hoping he would lose his mind and attack me, because you have reasonable cause to defend yourself in this case, and honestly, I don't handle threats very well, and I have quite a temperament myself, so you may imagine I was seething at this point. But of course, he backed off. He told me he'd get me the money tomorrow. I reminded him if I or my parents did not get it before tomorrow evening, I would be sure to call the police, and also I informed them their kid was no longer allowed to play on our property, the carport, and I thanked my neighbor and returned to the yard to scroll on my phone, make this post and laugh about this stupid ordeal. And yeah, Ripe Stars, before we read part 2 of the story, please let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this story, because it was from a different subreddit than usual, and I think it is a different type of story than what we read usually. Anyway, now let's continue with the second part. The next one is part 2 of the story. The cast is me, MD my dad, ED a very tough bank clerk, EM the platinum Karen, and N my neighbor. The day had passed without any real excitement, apart from the lords of the fortress returning, which were my parents. It went from morning to afternoon, and soon the daylight was starting to fade. It was nearing dinner time. So basically, I had already informed my parents as to what happened on the phone. I chose to explain it again in further detail when they got home. I showed them the fence and my dad was unhappy, to say the least. Like I said, there is some history there already, and these neighbors in question have been nothing but an annoyance to the entire street, but it seemed this time they took it a step too far in my dad's book. Regardless, I explained to him they agreed to pay up for the fence before the evening, so he should expect them to be at the door anytime with the 250 euros agreed upon, which was honestly the only thing that stopped him from going over there himself and giving them a piece of his mind. Lo and behold, at the last possible moment when I was already ready to call the police, Dumb and Dumber decided to show up, so my dad opens the door with me right behind him. MD, so, finally decided to show up? Yeah, we are here to talk about what happened. How dare you think your son can talk like that to us? Me? MD, no, you're here to pay for the damages to my fence. Besides that, I want absolutely nothing to do with you people. It was at this point yet again that my niece nearly gave out as her husband appeared from behind her, his shape sculpted by the gods, enough to intimidate even a Spartan in the days of Leonidas, the last rays of sunshine glittering on his freshly polished head, where the last hairs were losing the battle against his expanding scalp. But no, three were holding their ground. Their utter defiance to his baldness, both inspiring and yes, intimidating, they lay over his head, firmly kept in place by copious amounts of the hair gel they used in the days of yore. I think it was the shiny stuff Elvis used to use, and by the way, no, that is not true. That's blasphemy, because Elvis did not use hair gel. He used pomade. But anyway, his gaze angered, his expression sour, his breath calm and paced. ED, and what is that supposed to mean? My dad, that I want you to pay for the damages your son did to my fence, and then I want to go back to not speaking to you. Again, it may sound harsh, but like I said, not the first rodeo with these people. EM, how dare you? We are here to talk about how rude your son was. Me, was I rude before or after you yelled at me and slammed the door against my foot? Or perhaps when your husband made his hilarious attempt to threaten me? You should have seen the dude's face as he was muttering to come up with some sort of smart comeback. It was also at this point that my neighbor walked over to our front lawn, peeking over the hedge, about 150 centimeters tall, surrounding the front lawn. Look, you're going to pay for the damages, or we are just going to have to call the police. I'm in no mood to deal with you people any longer, and then I am absolutely forced to deal with you. EM, no. First we want your son to apologize for how he behaved. Me, could you please stop yelling? We have neighbors, you know. EM, C, being rude again. ED, you better tone down the attitude. At this point, I'm just done with these people. I'm certainly not going to say sorry for. I'm not sure what I was supposed to say sorry for in the first place, so I grab my phone and start going through the numbers, since the non-emergency police line is somewhere saved when you buy the phone most of the time. Me, right, I'm calling the police. We will just have them deal with it. MD, good idea. Now you people get the hell off my front lawn. We will have the police deal with this. EM, what? No, just give him the money, ED. I could see ED's bravado disappear once again. It was like he was deflating, for the lack of a better word. At this point, he just walked over to my dad, pulled the money from his pocket and handed it to him. MD, was that truly so hard? My neighbor has the brightest, most FU-esque smile on his face and yells over. Neighbor, sure seems like it was. Some people just don't know how to behave. I could see EM keeping herself back from absolutely blowing up, her fingertips dug into her hand palm, stomping back to her house, likely breaking one of those incredibly gross, extremely long pink nails. Hilariously enough, her deflated husband immediately follows her, pretty much like a little obedient shadow. And that, my friends, is the end of the story.
Yeah, ripe stars, someone just woke up and maybe wants to say hello to YouTube. Is that right, Disney? Who wants to say hello to YouTube? Disney wants to say hello. Or someone is still sleepy. Yeah, Disney is definitely taking a lot of naps. She's a little bit like my girlfriend, who also really enjoys taking naps. I personally, I cannot really take naps during the day. It's just too chill for me, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure. Just now Disney was meowing, but now it seems like she wants to go back to sleep. Oh, yep. Lick or not lick? Oh, so cute. Yeah, I don't know why this area is so much more fluffy than the other areas, even though she's fluffy everywhere. But that area really takes the takes the cake. Oh, I guess now it's back to the next chill area. Okay, Disney now. Do you have to say something to the YouTube audience? Any inspirational quotes? I guess not. Well guys, thank you so much for watching, and I see you again later tonight.
And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.